Hi, I'm a member of the MFTCentral support team. Earlier we've covered installing MFTCentral, controlling settings within the application, and setting up an FTP server. Today I'll be talking to you about FileBoxes. So in this diagram we see the different stages that a file goes through in MFTCentral. On the top are MFTCentral processes that control the files that move through the system, and on the bottom is the location and the stage that the file is in. So starting from the left, before a file gets into MFTCentral, it's going to be sitting in a particular location. So it might be in a directory on the local server, it might be on an SFTP server in a directory, it might be out on a CIFS share or an Amazon S3 bucket. So that's the state that a file is in here before the producer gets to it. So it's outside the system. Then the producer process runs. It goes out and it looks for all the possible locations that a file could be. And if it's there and it matches the setup, the filter that's set up, it'll pull the file in. It'll pick it up and place it down here in the producer file box. So the producer file box is a location, a kind of a landing zone where a file sits after it's been brought into the system, but before the system knows how to process it. In the next stage, the router process goes out and it looks at a router database that connects producer file boxes with consumer file boxes. So it goes out, might be a static rule, it might say all files that land in producer file box 1 route to consumer file box 1, or it might say all files that are in that file box that are of a certain size go to this box, a different size go to a different consumer file box. So it's a complex set of rules that allows you to kind of act like essentially a router or a switchboard operator, where you can make different connections to different consumer file boxes. So once the router process picks up that file out of the producer file box and puts it in the consumer file box, now it's in a location that defines where it needs to go. What actually delivers that file to where it needs to go is a different process called a consumer process. So the consumer delivery process picks up the file out of the consumer file box and delivers it. So all the protocols that are available to pick up a file from the file source that the producer used are also available at the consumer process. So, but it doesn't have to be the same protocol. So we could pick it up with a file system adapter and deliver it with an S3 protocol, or we could pick it up with an SFTP protocol and deliver it with AS2. So it's very flexible in the different protocols that are available to pick up and deliver a file. So now that we've covered that, we'll go in and actually do a quick demo on showing you how to create a producer file box, a consumer file box, connect the two, and route the file. So I'm going to log in. And the first step we do is create a file box of type producer. So we go down here to file box definition, and we'll add a file box. We're just going to call this producer 1. Now again, this will be where files will land when they come into the system, and we're going to make sure we have producer checked rather than consumer, and we'll hit save. Now we've got a producer created. The next step is to go in and create a consumer file box. So here we go, and we're going to call this file box, just call it consumer 1. But here on the file box type, we'll select consumer. Okay, and that causes a bunch of different drop downs to display. In this case, we're going to keep it simple and just deliver the file to the file system. All right, when a file system is selected, we don't need an account because we're just going to use the account that the MFTCentral application is running as. We don't need a host interface. We just need a directory. So we're going to go in and say We'll deliver this to temp, test, and then consumer drop-off. And then it asks you how many times you want to try to deliver that file. On a file system delivery, you shouldn't run into any problems. If this were a network protocol, of course, the server could be down, network could be slow, you could have problems delivering the file. So this tells the system how many times to try to deliver that file before it gives up. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. So now we've got a producer FileBox and a consumer FileBox. The next step is to connect the two, so that we say all files that land in producer 1 should be routed to consumer 1. We'll do that in the route rule. We click add. And we'll just call this route rule 1. And you can see the system's already populated the producer and consumer FileBoxes because we only have one defined for each. So it's already there. And we're going to create a simple static route rule. So this is going to apply to all files that land in producer. They should all be routed to consumer. We'll save that. Okay, there's one more step here, and that's to tell the system how to locate files that should be placed in the producer FileBox. So we do that, we go down to producer. We're going to call this producer 1. And then we need to tell it, when you find files with this producer, where do you put them? We'll select producer 1. And then what protocol? How are we going to find these files? We're going to find them on the file system. And we're going to find them in the producer pickup directory. Now, when you're picking up files, you also have the ability to filter. So you don't have to pick up every file that's in that directory. You can say, pick up files that match a particular file filter. You can tell it how many files to pick up each time you pull. In this case, we're going to say 10. You can tell the system what size the file should be. In this case, they have to be at least 1 byte, but less than 1 megabyte. And then you can also say if a file is less than a certain age, don't pick it up, because that could indicate that it's still being written to. So in this case, we're going to put the value very low so that so we don't have to wait during this demo for the file to pick up. We'll put it at 5. And then also we want the process to run, we'll say also every 5 seconds. So we can poll, if we know that we want very low latency on an interface, we can set the poll period very low. That causes the system to consume more resources, but on the other hand, a file won't sit there for too long either. All right, we're going to save that. Okay, so now we've told the system where to look on the file system to pick up a file, where to place it when it lands, and then how to route a file from the producer FileBox to the consumer FileBox. So now we're going to go ahead and we'll just generate a test file here. I'm already in the producer pickup directory. Okay, so I've generated a test file in the producer pickup directory. In a few seconds that should be picked up. Okay, we'll go back and check it. Okay, we can see the file's gone. Okay, and we can see the file now has been picked up and it's been brought into the system and it's been moved into the producer FileBox and then moved into the consumer FileBox, and then it's finally delivered in the consumer drop-off just as we configured. So we can see the process worked. We can get more details by going into the console. Here we can see our file. So in this case, it shows us the file was what the file name originally was. It was test1. It was brought in and placed into the producer1 file box. It was then routed to the consumer1 file box. The current status is delivered. We can see when it was picked up, when it was routed, and when it was delivered. And then we can see different information about the different stages that it went through and what the current values are, where it was dropped off, where the file was found, what route rule was used to route the file. A lot of useful information. And then you can also put comments, associate comments with a file. If a file fails to deliver, you can say maybe why and maybe when the server is going to be coming back up. You can download the file if you want to reference the file, or say mail the file to somebody because you can't deliver it to them. All right, so that's the console. And you can also, in this console, you can go in and do filtering based on time, date, status, file box. So this covers a summary of file boxing in MFTCentral. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next video.